Hello everyone. You're about to hear a short synopsis of the film Ultimate Fighter. The film is based on real events. One-armed Nick Newell entered the cage to fight a regular fighter and immediately began to take a beating. The opponent decided not to give the disabled fighter any leeway and began punching and kicking him. Finally, the referee stopped the beating. We flash back 15 years. A bully took little Nick's prosthetic arm and promptly hit him in the face with it. Even back then, Nick could stand up for himself. That day, he met Abby, a boy who, like him, loves wrestling. Nick is a congenital amputee of his left arm, so he never knew what it was like to have both arms. But can that stop him from fulfilling his dream of becoming a professional wrestler?
Maybe you should stop pretending to wrestle and start wrestling. Wrestling training.
After 9 years, the friends took up wrestling seriously. Nick's peculiarity is still a source of joke among all sorts of. What are you laughing at, elbow? His name is Nick. No, he's an elbow. There's a girl in the club, and she just pinned Nick without any trouble. The guy immediately wanted to quit wrestling because everyone was laughing at him. However, his mother persuaded him to continue. Abby always dreamed of a Harley-Davidson and finally bought himself one. The coach understands that Nick needs more attention than the others and gives him specific advice.
See, the left hand is behind the head. You only need your right hand. The
diligent guy grasps everything quickly. The support of his friend and mother is a big help. Stacy is slowly saving up for nursing school. Abby is the most promising wrestler on the team. He just defeated an opponent from another school. It was time for Nick to compete. Abby helped him buckle his helmet and wished him luck. It seemed like Nick had no chance of winning. The opponent even laughed at the one-armed wrestler. Nick became depressed again and wanted to quit. Then Stacy arranged for her son to meet a famous one-armed baseball player who played in the professional league. Jim Abath motivated the schoolboy, "You should do what you love." Nick would just have to put in twice as much effort as everyone else. Stacy learned from a coach about a special summer camp for wrestlers. The woman spent all her savings on it, believing it would help her son become better. However, the boy was upset to learn that his mother had given up her dreams for him.
Promise me that one day you'll go to nursing school. Nick trained all summer and returned to the school team with a fighting spirit. This year we're screwed again. The main team, then the elbow is not on our team. They don't ask you, Shelby. You'd better spit the out of your mouth.
Nick demanded that Shelby be matched against him in a sparring match. If Jerkos won, he'd leave the team. It wasn't easy for Nick at first, but he eventually pinned the jerk. Now Shelby will have to keep his mouth shut. It's time to prove himself at school competitions. Besides, an extra win today is more important than ever for their team. Nick got into the swing of things, turned on the beast, and lost. The poor guy ran outside and burst into tears. The coach asked the young man to come back and fight in the consolation round, but he walked home. 5 years have passed since that day. The friends are sitting at a bar, getting drunk on beer. He and Abby haven't seen each other for a long time. Nick accidentally pushed some guy, who attacked the disabled man. Abby calmed the bearded man down by putting him in a choke. The guy told him he was planning to compete in an amateur MMA tournament. He and Nick are wrestlers, and that's the best foundation for mixed martial arts. Plus, it pays well. Nick signed up for the fight along with Abe. The winner gets $500. Nick, however, doesn't know how to fight at all. These guys are strikers. You throw them to the ground, and they're helpless. How many punches do you have to take before that? A few, but you have a thick skull. The promoter called Abe into the cage. Kudryavy worked his feet for a while, and then, as planned, took his opponent to the mat and applied a pain hold. The promoter was pleased and invited Nick to show off his skills. The black man refused to fight the disabled guy, but when Nick called him in, the fighter immediately got going. Nick began absorbing all the punches with his face and body, but as soon as the fight was taken to the ground, the situation changed dramatically. His opponent was locked in a chokehold and was unable to do anything about it. Unfortunately, only one fighter would advance, and Alex chose Abe. In just a month, he will fight in an amateur promotion. Nick is very grateful to Abby, because he supported him all his life.
You are like a brother to me, and you are like a brother to me. See you tomorrow. Yeah.
Nick's father abandoned the family when he found out his son was born with one arm, and now he wanted to meet him. Nick thought for a moment and still decided to give the man a second chance. Upon returning home, the guy heard terrible news. Abby's passion destroyed him. A friend had an accident and died on his Harley. In the gym, Nick furiously attacked the punching bag and started screaming, "Why him? Why his best friend?" Quote, the promoter expressed his condolences and reminded him about the upcoming fight. How about participating in it instead of Abby? Alex offered to pay the guy a whole $1,000 instead of $500. And Nick agreed. The promoter immediately came up with a nickname for him, that same Nick. The fighter accepted the offer because it would allow him to pay his mother back for her nursing school education. True, Stacy wasn't happy.
You completely crazy? Who's going to pay for your treatment after your injuries, Nick? We don't have insurance. Mom's
practically a nurse. She'll patch him up if anything happens. Well then, kick his ass, Stacy blessed her son. Years later, Nick met with the coach again and asked the man to stand in his corner. However, Jeremy replied that he didn't work with fugitives. He hadn't forgotten how Nick had screwed the team that day. Today, the newcomer will face an undefeated fighter with 6 wins. Stacy came to support her son. The coach is also in the gym. Yes, this is the same fight we saw at the beginning of the film, and it's not just his hand, but also his lack of experience. Nick has absolutely nothing to counter his opponent. Even when the fight went to the ground, Nick continued to catch every punch with his face. The guy spent the rest of the day in the hospital. Stacy had no idea how brutal this sport is. She would never let Nick step into the octagon. One day, they'll just knock his head off and leave him a vegetable. You won't make a career in this sport, Nick. Not a career. Frustrated, Nick went to a bar. There, a trainer sat down with him and told his former student that he'd fought like a fool. Despite being a very brave fool, Nick asked the man to train him again. Jeremy agreed, even though he knows nothing about mixed martial arts, so the man had to learn alongside his student. At least he knows how to get Nick back into top shape. After weeks of hard training, Nick stepped back into the octagon. Today, he had to prove he belonged. At the first opportunity, Nick took his opponent to the mat. However, he quickly rose to his feet, and then the incredible happened. Nick knocked out the fighter with one brutal punch to the jaw. The newcomer won his next victory via choke. From then on, everything went swimmingly. Training sessions led to new fights. Nick was defeating more and more fighters, and his lack of one arm wasn't slowing him down. He and his coach went to watch a fight between 2 pros, and Nick was a little scared after seeing his future opponent defeat a huge boar. He came into the locker room to congratulate Rich on his victory, but Rich suddenly got mad at him, saying Rich was at a disadvantage. If he won, he'd beat the one-armed guy. In his opinion, Nick was just a PR stunt to attract more attention to the sport. You're just a toy, a publicity stunt. You're denigrating real fighters. This toy will tear your ass apart. Despite Nick being number 1 in the rankings, Rich's promotion has no plans to hold a title fight. Jeremy filed a complaint, but it was dismissed. Then Nick wanted to meet with the commission in person. His mother also came to support him. The woman hinted that she would contact bloggers and news channels if the one-armed guy wasn't given the same opportunities as regular fighters. The promoter also put in his word. Nick is a real fighter. All his victories were fair and square, against real opponents, not fake ones. Nick's team got their way. He'll be allowed to fight for the championship title. Now Nick needs to prepare for the most important fight of his life. The coach demonstrated an effective technique for transitioning from a triangle to a submission hold. The key is to wait for the opponent to defend himself and catch their arm. Nick continued to work on his striking technique and perform intense physical exercises. And then came the night of the championship fight. The coach gave his student his final instructions, and Nick thanked him for his help. Meanwhile, Rij was fired up. He was ready to tear this upstart apart. Experts believe Nick won't last even one round. The spectators cheered the one-armed brave. Both parents will be watching his fight tonight. The challenger entered the cage first. When the champion appeared, the crowd erupted in applause. To date, Nick has 8 wins. His opponent has 16. Rich, you're screwed, Reynolds. The referee asked the fighters to greet each other. I'll show you what a real fight is. Quote.
Hey!
Jeremy advised his student to wear his opponent down. Nick caught his face with the first powerful hook. The champion then took him to the mat and showed him what a good ground and pound is. Nick then had to survive a choke, but he twisted free and landed a punch to the jaw. Nick got to his feet and continued the fight standing. At some point, Rich broke through his guard and began furiously working the body. The challenger was saved by the bell. It turned out that he had exhausted himself before the champion, but he started the next round with a very successful attack. The new plan kept Rich at bay. Everything was going well until Nick himself closed the distance. Rich executed a great throw and took Nick's leg to the ground. Our hero suffered and endured until the round ended. Nick walked to his chair with a severe limp. His leg was in very bad shape, but the crowd was now chanting his name. He'd proven to them that he was a true warrior. The rest period was over. Rich was ready to finish off the wounded man. He knocked the guy down and began pounding him into the mat with his fists. But then Nick managed to get the champion in a rear naked choke and hung on as Rich rose to his feet. The latter fell hard on his back, but Nick didn't loosen his grip. He squeezed the vice until Rich patted his arm. The bald man urged the promoter on. His protege had lost to the one-armed fighter. It seemed no one believed this outcome, not even Nick himself. A trainer and his happy mother ran into the cage. They lifted the championship belt together. "Abby, we did it," said the new champion. At the end of the film, we see the real Nick Newell training in that very title fight.